When somebody says the words influential video games, one of the first that comes to most people's minds is Super Mario Bros. It cemented the validity of home console gaming, as well as arguably saving the gaming industry as a whole from its 1983 market crash. Over 3 decades on, it sits comfortably as the forefather of the modern platformer, as well as the first Super Mario game of many which still continue to surprise and delight. But in the 2020s, just how does Super Mario Bros. Hold up in comparison to its many descendants? Find out in this review. Before you do, however, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications whenever I upload, leave a like, and comment your thoughts on Super Mario Bros. Before watching. I refuse to say let's go because Mario technically didn't say that until a decade after this released, but for now, I'll just say let us commence forth. From what we play through, the plot of Super Mario Bros. Seems to establish the status quo for all Mario going forward. Bowser kidnaps Peach and Mario has to rescue her. That is until we take a look at the original license manual from 1985. You're gonna want to buckle up for this one. According to this manual, the Koopa used their magic to turn everyone in the Mushroom Kingdom into stones, bricks, and oddly specifically, field horsehair plants. Didn't know what that was until I googled it. Peach, or Princess Toadstool as she was known at this point, is the only one who can undo this spell, and so it's up to Mario to rescue her and save the kingdom. This might sound pretty standard, but when you look at the terrain of the levels here, you realize that for the most part they're all made of stone and brick. So essentially you're walking on the petrified bodies of toads every step you take. But even more f***ed is the fact that all these bricks we've been breaking in this entry, those were toads. What does that mean? Have we been murdering innocent toads for over 3 decades now? I need answers. In any case, I don't think they'd fully ironed out the continuity at this point. Once you put the mass murder of toads aside though, these levels are pretty solid. There are countless videos out there explaining how World 1-1 is the perfect way to introduce players to Mario without a single word of tutorial text. And I think that learn by doing approach is something I sorely miss in this era of hand-holding game design. Each level feels fun to explore, and this is made more impressive by the pretty limited slew of assets they're all built from. The design philosophy here was starting players out with easier levels at the start and then gradually placing more and more elements on later stages to bamboozle them. It's a pretty simple approach, but it really does create a steadily increasing difficulty as you move through this experience. The enemies used here, Goombas, Koopas, Bullet Bills, and Hammer Bros, all feel like natural progressions of those found in traditional arcade games. They all have their own movement patterns, which demand different strategies to be defeated or bypassed. We may take them for granted now, but all of these enemies really help to bring variety to the hurdles this game presents. I also think that levels where they take one enemy type and just place it all over the level are a lot of fun. These spaces kind of feel like the natural habitats of the enemies, and there's just something neat about that. The limited set of assets carries over into the boss fights, specifically the fact that every boss fight is against Bowser here. To their credit, they're still distinctive because of the placement of elements within them, and that in itself is impressive. The inability to go back for something once it leaves the left side of the screen can be annoying, but I think it encourages a little more thought in order to scour each stage from left to right effectively. This is also pretty forgivable when you remember that this game doesn't really have any of the collectibles of newer Mario entries. Whilst I love collectibles, I think that this simplistic left to right approach allows the stages themselves to be the main star of the show. There's also a much scarcer placement of coins here than later games, and the more treacherous paths often reward Mario with coins as opposed to just placing them all over the place. Not only does this reward risk-taking, but it also brings more meaning to each life you accumulate and encourages carefully planning how you will advance. In hindsight, another pretty brutal feature here is that even if you have a Fire Flower, getting hit will send you right back to being small Mario. This also encourages players to be careful in interacting with enemies. One small touch I appreciate here is that certain areas are only accessible by Small Mario, adding the potential for those who play without a power-up to collect more coins in small spaces by foregoing that extra hit point and the ability to break blocks. I think this design choice lays the foundation for the modern day mini mushroom power-up, which is equally risk-reward centric. Gameplay-wise, Mario in this game controls somewhat stiffly. This can often lead to skidding off of certain platforms or just not jumping far enough. Despite finding this unfair as a kid, replaying it has given me an appreciation for the skill of knowing when to walk and when to run. It's still somewhat jarring to adjust to, but once you do, it's fine. And even with this game's limitation of not having save points or even a password system, it found a way around this by using warp zones. These are hidden in several levels around the game, and they're not super tricky to find either. As a kid, I used to just assume that they were a cool way to get through the game faster, but now I've realized the genius they harbor in letting players get back to a point they were already up to on a previous play session. But as is the case with most things in this game, it also features the risk-reward element that completing all the levels is actually a great way to get more lives, and therefore more chances to take on the later, more difficult levels. Super Mario Bros. Also has a very traditional NES art style, which is more or less similar to those of arcade games. It's a very simplistic one, but it's legible and still has a degree of personality to it, albeit a stiff one. Level aesthetics here are similarly restricted to using palette swaps of platforms and backgrounds, but I actually find them to be pretty charming and resourceful. The iconic music of this experience is also great, and it feels quintessentially Mario, just based on how iconic these tracks would go on to become. Nostalgia aside, these are far from the most pleasing renditions of these to listen to, but the resourcefulness it took to compose them shouldn't go unnoticed. Super Mario Bros. Marked the true beginning of side-scrolling platformers, and there's no telling what the gaming landscape would look like today without it, let alone whether gaming would have even reached its current heights. Despite the untapped and somewhat constrained graphical potential of the NES, this experience embraced an 8-bit art style which, despite aging, still retains plenty of stiff charm. The iconic premise that went on to spawn countless sequels is hardly the main draw. That falls instead on the gameplay here, which is simply groundbreaking when coupled with a purist approach to level design and progression. It was a massive leap forward in the medium of gaming, even though just about every successive Super Mario platformer managed to outshine it. I don't rank games on influence, though if I did, this would earn a perfect 10. Compared to its immeasurable legacy, however, Super Mario Bros. As a back-to-front experience earns a 6.5 out of 10 from me. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you guys enjoyed watching my review of this beloved classic. If you did, be sure to subscribe, hit the bell for notifications every time that I upload, leave a like, and comment any suggestions for how to improve my reviews going forward. If you didn't, let me know why, and I will fight you in the comments because I'm super childish. See you all in the next one.